Okay, real life traders. What I was just talking about was Tesla and how I saw something setting up right before I took over the mic. And I was like, okay, this looks like a good setup. I mean, this meets all my criteria, except, okay, and this goes back to having a written trading plan and having a rules-based plan. Per my rules, I have to wait 5 minutes. If I just flip to a chart and I see a setup, I have to set it up and I have to wait 5 minutes before I can take it. Okay. That's just in my rule. And that's to prevent me from jumping into a trade just because I see something setting up, but I really haven't had the time to really evaluate it and to analyze it. So this is the trade that I saw setting up right before Johnny took over. This right here, this shooting star here, after we've been down here, was a great looking candle with this volume. Okay, see now when saying can't see your screen. So did that change? It says screen share is loading. All right, I wonder if we're having just major issues with Zoom right now, because right now, prior to this, I can see your charts on Tesla. Okay, David can split screen. Yep, okay, David can. But Wynn's got still stuck on Johnny's Apple chart. See, it's weird. This says my screen share is loading. Okay, Wynn's going to log back in. Can everybody else, aside from Wynn, can everybody else see my Tesla? Okay, Johnny said, Andy says, okay, I think what we're going to have to do is, hey, Johnny, are you still there? Okay, and Carolyn still has Johnny's screen as well. Okay, maybe I've just fixed it. Ta-da, John Miller. Yeah, so what I had to do is I had to go in and change Johnny's share and say stop sharing. Okay, beautiful. Okay, woo, technical issues. Okay, all right, cool. All right, so what I'm saying here, here's this Tesla setup that I saw setting up, right? So a couple things, right? First of all, I'm looking at it on a 3-minute chart, and at this time of day, I've talked about this before, right? 3-minute chart, I am at this point in day, I need to be using a 5. The 3 just is not as reliable to me at this time of day. It's 3 o'clock. It's the 5-minute, right? So part of the reason why I had to wait to take this trade is because I was just taking over and I just saw that setup. But immediately you see the difference between these two, right? So 3-minute chart, that looks like a great setup. I mean, when, those of you who've been with me talking about analyzing price action and volume, like that is a great looking candle, right? Shooting star, not the top of the move, but shooting star at the top of this move, a lot of volume, right? Great. But go in the 5-minute. That doesn't look as bearish to me, right? 5-minute chart, that looks more bullish to me, right? And yeah, there's volume, but it's not, the volume isn't, when you go to a 5-minute chart, it's not as great as when I was looking at it on the 3-minute. Okay. So then also, if I go into, and again, I haven't done this yet, I'm just doing this now with all of you. If I go into, here's the 5-minute, if I go into the 15-minute, all right, 15-minute doesn't look bad right there. Okay, so I've got a 3-minute that's looking like a shooting star, a 5-minute that's not looking as bearish to me, and then I've got this 15-minute chart, right, which I do have this shooting star here. What I would need, though, at this point in the day is I got to see, especially after this candle, right? especially after that, I need to see a close below this, right? So all of this is just what I'm walking you through is what's keeping me out of this trade right now. First of all, I had to give myself 5 minutes. And part of that was so that I could go through these steps that I'm going through now, which is to analyze the trade more in depth and see if it makes sense, right? So, all the time frames are not really in alignment. Let me go to the 30-minute and look at the 1 hour. Okay. So 30-minute, if I look at that, that's not looking bearish to me, right? I think you all could agree that's not really looking that bearish after this 30-minute candle. And if I go to the hourly, right, that's not, I mean, hourly, that looks like we have low 28, 262.80, low here, 260. So basically, tweezer bottoms. Okay. So that's the 1 hour chart, right? And on the 1 hour chart, I mean, look at this. If you look at on the 1 hour, what we look like we have right now is some type of a pennant, right? A bull flag, a bull pennant, whatever you want to call it. So, and especially that we have tweezer bottoms basically on the 1 hour, right? And then also here on the 30-minute, if you look at that. So if I go back to the 5-minute chart, let's go back here, right? If that's the case, if I have those tweezer bottoms, and look, I've got, here's the 15-minute chart, right? Those are my tweezer bottom, and you can see strong support here, tweezer bottoms. I mean, for the most part, right? We're 1 penny off. I'm gonna, at a $260 stock, I'm gonna call that tweezer bottoms. All right. So what does that mean? Well, that means that if I set up a trade right now, and again, consider time of day, it's 3 o'clock, right? Now it's 3:10. I only have 50 minutes to make this happen, right? I need to have per my rules, I need to have a minimum of 1.2 R to a target, right? This has to be my target. Actually, really, if I wanted to really, my target would have to be like more like right here, right? To the eyeball test, yeah, that could be 1.2. But all things considered, everything that I just walked you through, especially looking at this on, when looking at the 30-minute and the 1 hour, and considering, again, time of day, to me, this doesn't make sense to take this trade. Okay. So this was just an interesting moment when I happened to take over and I saw that 3-minute chart and, what that looked like on the 3-minute versus the 5-minute. Quite a difference, right? If you look at that. So the point to all this is I'm just emphasizing the value and the need to use multi-time frame analysis, right? So using the higher time frames to confirm your entries. Don't just trade on the 3-minute chart all day, right? Because here, this could, again, I have no idea what's going to happen here. This could just roll over and this could end up being a great trade. I don't know, but when I'm looking for a trade setup, I'm looking for those with the highest probabilities of success. And this right now does not have it based on all that analysis I just did. All right, any questions on that? Because I do have something that I wanted to present today. Any questions? Okay, does that make sense to everyone? I just want to make sure that what I was just going through at least made some sense to those out there. All right, thank you, John and Carolyn. All right, at least making sense to 2 people. That's great. Good. If I can change the lives of 2 people, all the better. Okay. Now, what I want to go over is this trade I did on SQ. So we're going to do 2 things today. We're going to go over this trade on SQ that I took that was a day trade yesterday that I did end up holding overnight. We're going to go over that, as well as I thought about it today and like, okay, so question for the group, and I do want to see a lot of responses here. Give me a 1 in the chat if you log your trades. If you journal your trades, you log your trades. Wynn says yes. Martina, Al, John, Carolyn, right? So we got a handful of ones. Cindy K. Okay. So if you're a person that has 6 fingers, we at least have a handful here of people who log their trades. Okay. Now, for those of you who responded, and even those of you who didn't, that's fine. Do you use the real life trading journal that we provide, which or any journal that is simply just my entry, my stop, and did I hit my target, right? Yeah. Okay. So Al says, yeah, I use Excel, Google Sheet based off of ROT. John Miller uses. Okay. So here's what I'm going to, and I'm just going to share with you my process. Okay. Because here's old, and we'll get to it after I go through my trade. Here's the issue I have with, and this isn't, a knock on the ROT trading journal. It's there, it's free, it's a nice tool. What I want is more than just numbers to look at. Now, I know you can put your link in there, right, from TradingView if you're using TradingView. But what I want is something more than just numbers that I can go back and reference, right? Because part of back trading, right? Yes, you can go and you can back trade the charts, but back trading should also be going back through your trades, and you should be using your trades, right? All of your trades, your winning trades, your losing trades, to determine, are you following your rules? Should you maybe update your rules? Are there rules that you need to add, rules that you need to delete? And then also to be able to try to find, are there certain trades or certain strategies that have a better edge than others, right? And to me, I'm a very visual person. So just looking at numbers, right? Just entry, stop, and then target, and did I hit it? And what's my profit or loss, right? I want more than that for myself, because I want to be able to, when I go back and I really dive into something, I want a full analysis of a trade, and I want to understand, what are those things that got me into the trade and how did I manage it? So there's context to a trade that you just don't get when you're just putting in numbers. Okay. So that's what I want to do today is to show you my process and how I log my trades. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is let's go through the trade I took yesterday. And I want to explain what I did, why I did it. Okay. So well, yesterday was Monday. Here was Friday's candle, right? So by the way, those of you who were with me on Friday, right? So Al, I think you were asking about this on Friday. Okay. Friday, what did we say? SPY Qs, we are going to retest down to the 30, 50% level, somewhere in there, and then bounce. Is that not what we said on Friday? Yeah. Martina says yes. When I know you were there, part of it. Al, yep. What happened yesterday? Everything, pretty much, right? 30%, 50% retracement, and boom, off to the races. This was so SPY yesterday, right? Let me zoom in here. Here were those lines that I drew on Friday. I said, this is roughly about that 30% retracement. This is the 50, right? I'm going to be watching those levels. Those are the levels where I'm looking for the bounce. SPY right at that 30, right? And I'm not making this up. You all were here with me, right? These are the lines I added on Friday. I said, I'm going to leave those on. I'm going to leave on the fib retracement. Great example of how well the fibs work, right? For those of you who aren't using fibs, great tool. So there's the SPY. Here's the Qs. Right? Again, here's the two lines I added on Friday. I did them with you. 30% retracement. Again, that was an eyeball test, 50%. Right? We basically opened at the 30, traded down almost to that 50, and then we got that bounce, right? So the point to all that is that, as I talked about Friday, when you get a big, huge candle like this, expect that kind of retracement, right? The next day, whether Friday, the next day would be Monday, of course, right? But typically the next day. So when I was looking at SQ yesterday, now, and again, granted, SQ did not exactly work perfectly yesterday, but it ended up being a good trade. So if I look at SQ on the daily chart here, right? If I just eyeball this candle, I know that, this is about the 50% retracement about right here, right? Somewhere in there. And look where we opened, right? And if I throw fibs on there, maybe that traded down to about the 61.8, right? But when I looked at this, the point is, when I looked at this SQ trade setup, that's what I was thinking. I'm right. We're at a decent bounce level. And so if I zoom in on, I'm going to go to a 5-minute chart. So here was yesterday. Okay. A lot of lines. I'm going to walk you through my thought process here. Okay. So this was not one of those setups where I had a great hammer with volume or a shooting star with volume. It wasn't one of those setups. So this is good because you get to see something different that I do. Okay. So this was the price action on SQ was just chop. But what is it doing? Right? If I were to actually draw some different lines on here, if I were to draw a couple of different trend lines here, this one and this one, okay? What is it doing? Just consider this line and this line. What is it doing? Yeah, it's a pennant for sure. Yep, it's a pennant. And if you were to basically zoom out, right, the previous couple of days would be the pole, and that would be the pennant. But more so than trapping, yeah. But what does a pennant do when? Okay, think about what is happening here. Building pressure. Boom, you got it, right? I knew you had the answer, right? It was just getting to that exactly where I was heading with this, right? All this is doing is these lines are narrowing, right? And as price is bouncing between them, all it's doing is building pressure. It's like coiling up, getting ready to explode. Now, I don't know whether that's going to go bullish or whether that's going to go bearish, but it's one of those things where I'm thinking based on the day yesterday, given the way that the market was moving, it was going to be bullish, right? So let me remove these lines because I didn't have those on at the time. So at one point I gave up on looking at the 3-minute chart, right? So now I'm looking at the 5-minute chart, and I'm also looking at the 15-minute chart. I'm just going to focus in on the area here where I ended up taking this trade. So what I was looking at is after this, we had the high here, then we had this pivot, and then I drew my 5-minute trend line here. Okay. Then I also drew a 5-minute trend line this way. So if I move this chart around, let me just back it up here. Right before that happened. So right in here, right? I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, this is building up pressure just on the 5-minute trend lines, right? You can clearly see that. You have this touch point here, and then look at this candle. When it came up, where did it get rejected? Right at that trend line, okay? So how do I trade trend lines? Well, what I do is I want to see a break and a hold above that trend line, and then I'll get in on a retest of that trend line. So it's no different than the approach to trading that I share with you on a regular basis, which is instead of taking the breakout or the breakdown, I like to look for confirmation of the breakout or the breakdown. Then I'll set up a limit buy or a limit sell, and I'll look for price to come back to me. Sometimes it doesn't happen. That's okay. I move on. It's fine. So that's what I saw yesterday. And I'm just walking you through my, what was going through my mind at the time. And again, the market was looking strong. Everything else was looking strong. I just happened to zero an SQ for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I took it. And so what happened was I would just walk through. That's when I got this candle. Boom, right? First candle to break above the trend line and hold, right? And we can also agree that that's a nice close above that trend line, right? That wasn't just like, okay, it wasn't like a candle like this where it wicked up and then, came back down. No, it was a strong close above the trend line. And that's what I'm looking for, right? Anytime I'm looking to go long, I want to see a strong close above the overhead resistance. Or if I'm looking to go short, I want to see a strong close below the support, right? So that happened. I'm like, all right, game on. I've got to look for my entry. And then this candle came in. Well, I should say before that candle came in, that's when I said, okay, this green line, that's my entry. I'm going to look for price to come back down to that trend line, and wherever that trend line intersects with where I think, and how I chose this level for my limit buy was just where this line intersects all of these candles. Right here, the high of this candle, basically the low, the high, right? You can kind of see that clearly is a level of previous support resistance. So that green line became my line, which was almost right back to the low of this candle, right? So I was like, all right, so boom, that candle came in. I'm like, okay, good. And then that candle triggered me in. Now, in hindsight, I was looking at, because I always try to analyze it and go, okay, well, could I have had a better set? But I really, when I see these kind of trend lines, I really don't expect this lower trend line to get broken like that. But anyway, it triggered me in. So my entry here was 43.32. My stop was down here, this red line, 42.90. That was my setup. Okay. So then it's, okay, I'm in it. It's kind of going against me. Then I got this green candle. Now, per my rules, okay, I cannot move my stop until, if I'm going bullish, okay, per my rules, I cannot move my stop until I get a green candle. So green candle comes in, okay, this right here is not looking great to me. And as a matter of fact, at the time that happened, well, I should jump over to the 15-minute chart real quick, because that did play into it, right? So 15-minute chart. I saw this hammer candle, which I liked. I saw this candle here, which I liked, right? And then I was kind of looking at all this. And then this candle, of course, all of these candles here were inside of my trend lines. So on the 15-minute, when I got the close above it on the 15-minute, right? That was also another reason. It was another box that I could check off as to why I like that trade. Well, then when this move came in, it was this. And I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be a losing trade. Look down here at the advanced volume bars that we talked about on Friday that Win presented. Look at this, right? If you squint, you can see a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of green up here. But for the most part, 15 minutes of nothing but selling, right? Everyone can see that. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, this trade's going against me. It's going to be a loser. Now, meanwhile, the market at that point was starting to rip. And I'm like, well, why isn't SQ following? Like, doesn't make any sense, but okay, it's trading on its own, whatever. But after this candle came in the 15, I was like, all right, I'm going to play defense. If I get an opportunity to move my stop and cut my loss to less than 1R, I am going to take it. So once this came in and this green candle came in, I'm like, all right, I'm going to move my stop up. So I moved it up to, what was it? What was the low of this? 43.14. Yep. So I moved my stop to 43.01 was my stop, right? Now, is that a great stop? No, because I don't like whole numbers personally, but I wanted to move my stop up, but I don't like the whole numbers, like 43. Like I like to be, ideally, I would have liked to have been at 42.90, but that's where my stop already was, basically. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go 10 cents or more under this. And I just moved it up. And I'm like, if I can just lose less than 1R, that's what I'm going to do. Okay. Next candle. Okay. Green candle. Great. Good. Next candle. Boom. All right. Good. Right. Starting to get back up to my entry. Right. And now, right. And so now we're into this candle here, right? 5 minutes candles. One. So, here's also where, just to be totally transparent with you, where I start going, should I just get out at break even? Right? How many of you would have been thinking the same thing? Do I just trade one against me immediately? Should I just get out of break even? Right? Yep. Win says me. Come on. I can't imagine that Win and myself are the only two people here who might have. Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Come on. It's human nature, right? It is human nature at this point, after the trade goes immediately against you, to start thinking, maybe I should just exit for break even, right? Now, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, I'll go with 5. 5 years ago, I might have done that, right? I don't do that now, because here's the deal. Yeah, when saying I'm thinking that the algos might be coming for me. Yeah, that's a possibility. But here's the deal. If I like to trade here, right, I've got to give it time to work. And if I was able to move my stop up to lose less than 1R, which I was able to do, then I've got to give it time to work. And if I just exit at break even because I could, right? Whoo, break even. I didn't lose any money. Well, but I also still didn't make any money, right? And a lot of traders, especially the new traders, developing traders, will pull the ripcord there. They'll go, you know what? I'm lucky to be back at break even. I was so close to having a loss. I'm just gonna get out, right, and move on. Well, okay. And again, guilty of doing that in the past, right? Something I used to do. Eject, Twin says. Exactly, right? So anyway, I did not, and believe me, the thought goes through my head. I don't want to make it seem like, oh, I'm this, trader that doesn't even occur to me anymore. Of course it occurs to me, right? It's human nature. Of course I thought about, should I just get out of break even? But you have to control that fear, right? And my plan doesn't allow me to do that. So I can't do it, right? And that's a good thing about having that in your plan, is that you can't exit at break even just to prevent a potential loss, right? So next candle. All right, it's not looking great, but I did, after this candle, I did inch my stop up a little bit more. Okay, next candle. All right, it's holding there. Oh, went the wrong way. Cindy K says, I've just graduated from not getting out at the bottom when a trade goes against me. Yeah, good for you, Cindy, right? Sometimes you just gotta, look, Cindy, there's a reason you got into the trade to begin with, right? And if you have to pay for a ticket to get on that ride, well, you don't get off the ride until it's over, right? Yeah, Wynn says it changes everything when you remove emotions. Yep. Trade like a samurai without fear. Okay, next candle. I keep going the wrong way. Okay, next candle. Okay, at least it's, it's holding that level, right? Boom. Okay, good. I'm back to my entry, right? Got a slight little close above my entry. Next candle. All right, looking better. But look, coincidentally, look where it got rejected. Now, again, I had these lines already on here. Look where it gets rejected, right? It's basically it double topped here with this candle right here, right? Not back here, but with this candle, but also right off that lower trend line, that I had added, right? You can't make the stuff up perfectly, right to it, okay? Next candle. All right. Now I'm going, see, I should have just gotten out for break even, right? Should have just done it. I had the opportunity. I should have just, because that's looking pretty ugly right there, right? I should have just gotten out when I could and moved on. Well, I because I can't, right? It's not allowed. My stop might have been at this point 43.05, I think. Again, I'm only moving it up by pennies at this point, right? I don't really have a great place to move it. Next candle. All right. Could be just a little bear flag happening here, and then it's going to roll over and it's going to take me out. But also think about this. I'm going to lose at this point little less than half an hour. I'm good with that, right? If I'm going to lose, I'm going to try to lose as small as possible. Next candle, right? Just hanging out. Next candle. Okay. This is it. It's going to roll over and take me out. Next candle. All right. Well, maybe it's just hanging on. Coincidentally, take a look at the top of all these candles. Basically, you can see there's 20 minutes of resistance. The high of this candle, 43.31, 43.30, 43.30, 43.30, right? You think that's a strong area of overhead resistance? Absolutely, right? But again, if it can break that, maybe we're off to the races. Who knows? Next candle. Okay. Again, high, 43.30, right? There's clearly a wall right there at 43.30, right? The bears are going, no, we're not giving up this is line in the sand. We're fighting it. We're not giving it up. Next candle. Okay. Bears got it, right? I'm thinking at this point, I'm getting stopped out. But again, I'm okay with it because it's going to be less than an R loss. Next candle, bulls aren't completely giving up. Right? Okay. It's just chopping around. Okay, boom. Okay, back to break even. Whew, do I get out? Should I just get out? Like, now here's my second chance to get out of this trade, at least for break even. Maybe even enough money for a Starbucks coffee. Maybe. Right? But can't do it. But now what do I have? I now have confirmation that my stop is in a really good place, right? Look at this. These three right here, right? My stop at that point was 43.05, I think. I'm like, okay, my stop, couple things, right? That right there is evidence that my stop's in a really good place. And not only was there strong overhead resistance here, there was also really strong support through here. So do I exit the trade just because I can now? Again, I was given a second shot at life. I can get out. I can, save my money. I can get out break even. Well, no, I don't. I want to write it out. Next candle. Boom. Awesome. Right? Great. What do I do with my stop? Well, I really can't do anything. I don't have a good place to put it. Next candle. Okay. Look at that. I'm like, all right, great. Now what? Now by the way, here's my target right here, 43.82. So price comes up here. And then let me also scroll over here so you can see, okay, this is the key thing on what you look at, right? These three candles right here are this candle right here. Okay. Now, I'm just trying to get 1.2R out of this trade right here. Just trying to get 1.2. That's all I'm going for. That's all I decided, that especially after all that sideways movement, it's getting later in the day. I'm like, what am I going to do? So what I wanted to share with you here was when this candle came in, who here would be happy if after that move, you gave it all back and you got out for break even? Who would anybody be happy about giving all this back? Right? Yeah. Wynn says I'd be pissed. Yeah, me too. Right? After a move like that, I don't want to give that back. Right? Beautiful move. what do I do with my stop? Does anybody see a clear look? Here's my stop right now is at 43.05, right? Where do I put my stop? Right? If I follow the stop rules that we're all taught, right? Well, you got to go under pivots, right? Or if I use my 2-bar trailing stop method, yeah, okay, go back 2 bars. Now my stop is underneath this candle, right? Because finally broke out, and I go back, I go 2 bars. Well, now my stop is down here and it's below my entry. No, there's no way after this move, I'm losing a penny on this trade. Does everyone agree? Yeah, Win agrees. Yeah, Martina agrees, right? So it's kind of a dilemma, right? It's certainly a dilemma going, where do I put my stop? I am not giving back all this profit and then risking getting stopped out if I put my stop down below this candle. And I have no idea what's going to happen next here, right? But I do know that I just had 15 minutes of awesome buying that I don't want to give away. So here's what I did. On this candle alone, I simply took my fib retracements. I threw on a fib on just that candle, okay? And per the, how the rules around trading with fibs, okay? A pullback down to anywhere between 38.2 and 61.8 is where you would put your entry. Your stop would be somewhere around the 78.6 or below that, okay? That's how you trade fibs. If you're just trading strictly off of fibs, that's what you do. So what did I do? I put my stop at 43.35. And I said, okay, if price comes back to 43.35 and I get stopped out, I'm still going to be pissed. No question about it. But I would have moved my stop using logic, using a tool that I use all the time, and I would still make some money, right? So my entry 43.32, yeah, I'd make 3 cents on whatever size I had, right? But again, the dilemma here is, where do I put my stop after a big candle like this? Well, there you go. That's what I decided to do. I didn't have a good location. I had nothing to go off of other than throwing fibs on this 15-minute candle and relying on this level, 43.35. And that's where I moved my stop. Okay, 43.35. So now my stop is just above my entry, right? Right on top of this volume profile node, right? The blue line right here, or the blue shaded area. That's where my stop is. Next candle, okay, comes up. What does it do? It gets up there for a millisecond. I don't get filled, right? 43.82 was my target. Don't get filled. High of this, 43.82. Coincidentally, funded account, the high of that candle on the funded account, 43.81. So did not get filled. So talk about being frustrated now, right? Don't get filled on it. And now again, where do I put my stop? Well, again, per my 5-minute trailing stop rule, count back 1, 2, 1, 2. My stop would basically, the low of this candle, 43.33, my stop would be at my entry, but I've already gone a couple pennies above it. So even with this candle, I can't do anything more with my stop. I need to give it room, right? I can't just like go right below this candle here because, I'm not giving it the opportunity to pull back one more time and then bounce, right? So I'll just go through this, goes up. This again does not trigger my and again, I could have marketed it out at this point, but I'm like, you know what? I've got a lot of, time invested at this point, right? A lot of emotional equity invested at this point. I'm like, I'm either going to hit that 1.2 or, I would have been fine if it came down here at this point. I was resolved to go like, I'm either hitting my target or I'm not. That's it. So next candle, right? Okay, I'm thinking it's going to push up and hit it. Boom, doesn't, pulls back, right? I'm like, all right, it will double top. It'll do it again. It'll hit my target. Now it pulls back. Okay, now it's going to double top. It's going to hit my target, right? And I'm thinking, because generally when I see double tops like this, oftentimes it will just poke through just above the previous high to trigger in all those newbies who have their long orders sitting there, and then it will reverse, right? So I'm thinking double top, it will just poke through that level and then it will come back. Nope, pulls back. And I'm like going, oh, come on, you're killing me. You're killing me, Smalls. So I'm holding through all this. Okay, gets up there again. Shooting star candle, right? Right. I'm also watching all the volume here, decent volume on this candle. I'm like, all right, this is it. It's going to make a push. And then it just keeps. Now, meanwhile, at this point, my stop after this candle here, I think my stop was down here at 43.45 right here. 43.45. I'm like, I'm going to go just below 43.50. And so this candle kept me in, did not stop me out. Right. Keeps going, keeps going. All right. I'm like, one more shot. Come on. By the end of the day, nope, nothing. So at this point, heading into the close here, I had already decided. I'm like, all right, you know what? I don't typically, I very rarely, I should say, take a day trade and hold it overnight, right? It's not something I normally do. It's kind of goes against my risk tolerance, where I go, okay, well, it was a day trade. I don't want to have overnight exposure, but I'm like, you know what? After a day like today, I do think we're going to get maybe another gap up tomorrow. And, you know, again, I could be wrong, but that was my thesis. And I left my stop here at 43.45, got my stop in place. And I was like, let me just see what happens, right? So today, so before I get into today's, does that make sense so far? Is everyone following along? Let me know if there's any questions. All right. So I'm looking at the pre-market and I'm like, all right, pre-market volume's not great, right? It's kind of spotty. Look at all that, but it's moving up. It is moving up pre-market. Volume again, like that's just like it's gapping all over. It's not great. You know, I'm waiting for it to start shaping up, and it finally does here. Finally starts to shape up like a normal chart a little bit, right? Still kind of gappy through here, but it finally did, you know, but it was moving up. And meanwhile, at this point, like I'm watching it pre-market and I'm thinking, okay, well, no matter what, right? My stop now, as soon as the market opens, I'm moving so this right here, let me just walk you through. This was my 1.2. I'm sorry, that was my entry. This was my target, right? 1.2. So immediately when the market opened, I'm like, okay, I can move my stop to 43.82. Okay. Now, the other thing that I did, and I had to do this yesterday before the market closed, right? Because you can't go and modify orders in the funded account when the market's closed, right? Even in the first 5 minutes that the market is open until the funded account starts trading, you cannot modify an order. So what I did yesterday before the market closed, let me go back to this daily chart. I said, okay, I made a decision to hold this overnight. I knew that I had to put in my target for today before the end of the market yesterday, before the close of the market yesterday. So I knew I was going to hold it overnight. I had my stop locked in at, my stop was locked in here at 43.45, right? So down here. So no matter what, I'm like, all right, I'll at least make something, even if it, you know, opens and it just runs to my stop and takes me out. But where do I want to, I said, but I'm not just going to settle for 1.2, right? If it moves, I want more than 1.2. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to, I identified this level here, this level here, which was 43.80, right? So I thought, okay, well, maybe that, but then I also looked at this 44.64, 44.65. And I decided that was where I was going to put my, so here was my original entry, my stop, my initial target here. And then I was like, all right, 44.65, that is where I'm going to put. And how I came up with that was based on the daily chart, right? I did look at this red line here. I was considering that, but I'm like, I don't want to be too aggressive with my target, right? If this does gap, I want to take advantage of the gap. I want to lock in this trade. So I had the choice of this one or this one from yesterday. I went with this, right? I didn't want to be greedy. I just was like, all right, if I get that one 44.65, it's a nice 3R trade. I'll go with that. So this line here was one I also identified. How I came up with those two levels was, right? So this level here was clearly previous support that got broken, became resistance. Price came back up above it. It retested again here. So that was how I came up with that line. And then how I came up with that line was, of course, here. That was support on this candle here. And then it became resistance here and here. So those were the two levels that I had to choose from. I went with this. I'm like, look, if I can lock in 3R, if it does gap, that's what I'm going to do. So I went ahead and threw my order in here at 44.65. And this morning, the market opened, and pretty much like right as the funded account started trading right here, it triggered. And like, even if I wanted to have gone in, I wouldn't have had time to, because the moment the funded account started trading, it just executed that order. And that is the one downside. Like if you're trading like with Interactive Brokers, I can go in and modify my order anytime, right? I could have gone in and changed that, because I figured if it opened here and ran, it was going to go. I didn't think it was going to run this far, but I figured it could easily run up to here. That would have been a nice, like almost like a 6R trade, I'm guessing. If this was 1R, that's 1, 2, 3, maybe like 5.5. I don't know, something like that. But the point is, I was locked into this. I didn't have an ability to change that order. So as soon as the funded account started trading, it just boom, executed, and I was out. But I was out for 3.3R, right? And it's a great trade to lock in. I was happy with the results. All right. Any questions? Because I got 9 minutes and I'm going to share with you how I will log this, because I didn't log it yet. I was waiting. So any questions on what I've shown you so far? All right. No questions. Let me stop the share real quick. Let me go into, give me a second. I will be right back with you. All right. We have 8 minutes to do this. So I'm going to be quick, but I will get to it. Okay. You should see the screen here. Just real quick, I got to pull up the chat again. You see the screen here that says 10/9/2023 SQ, and then does everyone see that? Yeah. Okay. First thing I'm going to do, okay, is I'm going to take screenshots. I'm going to go through this quickly, just because I'm running out of time. I should have been quicker on all this. Okay. So there's the daily chart from yesterday. A second. Here's the 5-minute chart, right, from yesterday. Here's the hang on, I'm trying to get it. Probably going to go back and redo all this after I finish, but you'll get the idea because I'm catching some information that I don't necessarily want in here. Control V. So here's the 15-minute chart. See what I'm missing right here is I can't see the volume on the candle, but obviously I think you would know that that's very strong volume, right? Then I want to go. Oh, I know what I can do. Hang on. Much better. Sorry, bear with me. Trying to rush through this. Okay, there's a 15-minute chart from yesterday, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab the 5-minute chart from today that also has the pre-market data on it. So this is what you're looking at. If I didn't mention it before, this is Microsoft OneNote. I don't know if everyone's familiar with OneNote. Okay. So everybody can see that I've put those charts in there, right? Just give me one real quick. Make sure that you're catching all this. Perfect. Okay. So there's, again, here's the daily chart. Here is the 5-minute chart from yesterday, the 15-minute chart from yesterday, and then here's the 5-minute chart from today, right? Including pre-market data. Okay. So I'm not going to be able to go through all this in the next 4 minutes, but here's the thing. Here's how I do it myself. Okay. Trade summary. Okay. Learning points, how to improve. Those are the things that I hit on, that I'm going to complete this, right? So I'm going to fill this out. I'm going to say trade summary. Okay. Trade summary is, I'm going to start by doing the daily analysis. Okay. SQ had a very bullish day on Friday. I was expecting SQ to retest into the 30 to 50% fib retracement area on just Friday's candle. And at that point, I was going to be looking for some type of an entry to go long. The market was bullish. I wanted to trade with market. So I'm just going to give a complete summary of the trade that way. Just the trade summary is just simply my thought process on what I saw, why I took the trade, what was the context, right? So I'm giving context to the trade and the trade summary. Okay. I'm also going to give the details of, I'm going to talk about everything that I've already just explained to all of you, which is on the 5-minute chart. I drew the 5-minute, I had a 5-minute trend line for going bullish. I had a 5-minute trend line for going bearish. I was expecting it to go bullish. I waited for a confirmation, a closing candle, a candle that closed above the 5-minute trend line, strong close above it, confirmation candle, put in my limit buy to get price, to get an entry when price retested that level. So I'll walk through and I will give all those details in the trade summary, right? Along with talking about how I threw a fib here on the 15-minute candle to establish where I'm going to put my stop, because I didn't have a great place to put my stop, after this candle formed, and I didn't want to get back my profit. So everything that I've already verbally covered with you, I'm going to write it out here in the trade summary. Learning points. Okay. Learning points. I'm going to talk about, okay, well, what are the things that I learned, right? Well, as I can touch on, again, reiterate that, sometimes with price action, there's not a good place to put a stop, but utilizing a fib retracement on a 15-minute candle could actually give me a good location to put my stop. Any other learning points that I can come up with, I'm going to put it there. Okay, I'm going to talk about, so that I can, when I go back and I relook at this, I'm going to say, okay, well, here's what I learned from this trade. Okay. Learning point is that, maybe, especially because I'm using the funded account, right? Learning point there can be more aggressive with your target, because the funded account, you cannot change your entry until when the market is closed. You don't have the ability to modify your order, okay, in the funded account. So there's a couple of nuances there that I would definitely want to touch on, okay? Then I'm going to go into how to improve, and I'm going to talk about the points. How can I improve? Based on my learning points, how can I improve on this next time, right? And so that might be, well, learning point could be, especially with the funded account, set your target much farther away so that you have the ability when the market opens to then establish a new stop and then just simply trail. Because think about and Yates, I know you're here too, so I'll make this quick, but think about if I put my target way up here, right? But basically where that red line was, this red line, when it opened, I could have easily moved my stop right here underneath the pre-market price action. And then I could have, as the price moves up, it would have given me time to raise my target even farther up here. And then I could, as price moved up, I could have, look at this move right here, right? If I had just utilized that 5-minute 2-bar trailing stop all through here, that could have been a 6R trade, right? So again, I can take all those points, and especially with the funded account, because of the nuances with it, and I can put that into how to improve. And then when I go back and review these trades, right, I'm not just looking at numbers, right? Because numbers don't tell the whole story. So, all right, sorry I had to rush through that last 10 minutes, but hopefully that made sense to everyone. Maybe I'll take time to do more of this in a future session. I didn't realize I was going to need more than an hour to get through all this, but anyway, hopefully that was helpful for you. I do really like the idea of setting up my journal, right? Logging my trades this way, because it gives you so much more visual reference than just putting in entry, stop, target, win or loss, right? Okay, with that, I will finish that up. Let me stop the recording.